Hey, hello there, and welcome to Talking with Tony. I'm your host, Tony Jones. Excited to welcome tonight John Perkerson to be my guest. John, where are you coming tonight?
I'm
You
actually coming in from Moreland, Georgia right now.
sweet. You've made that transition from Newnan, Georgia to Moreland, Georgia. How you liking Moreland? You kind of dressed for Moreland there tonight. You
Yeah.
look very Moreland.
Hey, I mean, you said, hey, debut episode, wear your finest shirt. So, hey, got to break out the old Stone Cold and Rock shirt. But it's been good, still adjusting a little bit. The nice thing about Moreland is, excuse me, it's, still close enough to town, convenient to everything, but it's still quiet out here.
If you're tuning in and you just joined us, you're not familiar with Talking with Tony, chances are you might very well be. This is the 14th season of Talking with Tony, and I couldn't do this without my producer and director, Jake Barton. And Jake worked on the 13 previous years of Talking with Tony, worked on it for over 11 years. And John's been a guest of ours the last couple of years. And the show previously was on New Lincoln Wow. They had exclusive rights to it. But as of now, where we have moved the show over to YouTube. And I want to thank the folks at YouTube for giving us this platform so we can bring this entertainment. Talking with Tony is usually a sports show, but we have other things. But what we have made it just a tremendous, we've had tremendous success, and we've made a reputation on being able to provide winners. We predict things that have come to fruition. For example, John's a UGA graduate. Yeah, he did pick the Bulldogs to win the national championship last year, to repeat. That's just one small example of things that have been predicted on Talking with Tony. I picked the Buckeyes. You can tell in the background, I'm a Buckeye, and I picked the Buckeyes. I still feel like they should have won the national championship. They didn't win the national championship. But there was a streak there where I picked 6 World Series winners before the season started during the span of these previous 13 years. So we're going to be providing that kind of discussion, picking winners, discussing things. We're also going to get to know our individual guests. They won't just be analysts, but you're going to get to know them a little bit personally. John's a football coach with East Coweta, also a lacrosse coach. And John, before you know it, you're going to be right back out there with the girls in flag football playing games. I know we're not quite there yet, but it's just around the corner.
Yeah, yeah. We've been conditioning all summer, and with school starting back up, we're starting Tuesday, Thursday after school conditioning, and had a great turnout. We had to cancel last Thursday just because with this crazy weather the past few days here, but we had about 35 girls show up, which is the majority of our team that made it through spring tryouts, and we're excited about this upcoming season. Kids have been working hard. They've been doing the work behind the scenes that we've been asking them to do, and we return almost everybody from last year's team, and the way I'm putting it is, if we don't make it as far as we did last year, maybe not have the success, it's not going to be because of lack of hard work by the girls. They've done everything we've asked them to do, and I'm proud of them. And excited for September to get here so we can start having normal practices again, and then for the season to kick off in October.
Do you sense a bit of confidence now with the team after that deep run? You knocked on the door of a state championship. You won some, nice playoff games. You had a great season, but really being that close to tasting that state championship as it begins this year, do you see a little extra level of confidence in the kids?
I think so, especially with so many coming back. And, a lot of them last year was their first year playing. So, they've got that under their belt. And, for all of us, getting to that level, we were all nervous, playing in the Falcons practice facility. It was overwhelming. But, I feel like they know that we were only a couple of plays here and there away from making it to that state title game. And, they know too that those things just aren't given to you. You got to put in the extra work. And I remember talking to my seniors that they were juniors last year, but they're seniors this year. It's like, hey, what are our goals for next year? And they said that they want to be if we're moving back to Mercedes-Benz this year, they said, we want to play at Mercedes-Benz. I said, y'all got to put this work in if we want to be there. And they've done everything I've asked them to do. So I think, to make a short answer long, yeah, there's some confidence, and there's just some, hey, we know what we need to do to be there, and we're going to do our best to make sure that, at the end of the day, no matter what happens, there's no excuses. we did everything we could to get there.
I remember telling a friend out west, I was talking to someone in California about their team last year, and I said, you know what, they didn't lose that game; they just ran out of time. It was so close, it was so tight, and it was so well played too from both teams. A flag football game doesn't have to end up being 42-35. Man, a flag football game can be intense and low scoring, and there was plenty of great defense, and there were some good offensive plays also. So I got to be honest with you, it's one of the things that I'm looking most forward to see if you can repeat, because the sport's growing. The competition's going to get more difficult. The sport in your state of Georgia, where you are, the sport is taking off. It's growing. So there are going to still be hurdles for you, even though you had so much success last year. And there's also going to be that proverbial, on your back, that proverbial X that you got on your back, because people know that they're going to shoot for you as the bullseye because of your success.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we talked about all summer. Is as a team, we've got to be ready, because every team we play is bringing their A game, and that's something that they can hang their hat on, put a feather in their cap, whatever sports metaphor you want to use. If they beat East Coweta, well, dadgummit, they did something, especially some of these first-year programs. And, with our area, we increased by 4 teams. So it's going to be a little tougher to win the area title. And, last year we went undefeated in the area. So everyone in our area is going to want to come after us because, they want to get revenge for that loss from last year. So they've bought into that, and hopefully it will show this season that, they know they can't underestimate anybody.
John, that's when you know you've got a great program. When you have that level of respect that people say, "Hey, if we can beat East Coweta, that's accomplishing something right there." That's when you know you've built a tremendous program yourself, and those people are shooting to do exactly that. Well, whether or not they can execute that, remains to be seen.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because right now all of us are trying to chase Lithia Springs. That's the team in our division that, they've played for a state title. They've won a state title. Last year they only let 1 touchdown. So, they've kind of set the standard for our division on what everyone wants to get to. And, hopefully we're seeing kind of as that same step as them is, hey, this was one of the top 4 teams in our division last year and one of the top teams in the state. So, hopefully, we can be seen as that team as well.
In a little while, we'll talk SEC football. We'll talk the Georgia Bulldogs and LSU and Alabama and all. But one of your interests is a shared interest with mine. That's hitting the movie theaters. And last year, Everything Everywhere All at Once won for the Best Picture at the Academy Awards. I really don't understand how that happened, but it happened. And they also racked up on some of the individual awards as well. I think I've seen every movie that's currently playing at the movie theater. You've probably done almost the same, despite the fact of your busy schedule. I can say that I've seen Past Lives. I didn't see it in the movie theater, but I saw it elsewhere. And Oppenheimer, 2 movies that I feel like are good enough to get nominated for the Best Picture. I don't know if I've seen anything else. And most of the movies targeted for that Best Picture, John, come out between November and the new year. They take advantage of the holiday time and get extra. But those are 2 that I have my eyes on: Past Lives and Oppenheimer. I'll be honest with you, I didn't see Barbie. That really wasn't for me, my interest and all. But I expect it to get a consideration as well. What about you, as far as movies that you have seen that have really said, like, hey, this could be something here?
I think as far as what I've seen, I don't think I've seen any movies that are going to be like big time Academy Award nominees so far. I know you weren't a huge fan of it, but I thought the Mission Impossible movie was entertaining. I got to give it to Tom Cruise to be, whether he's 60 or almost 60, to still do his own stunts with some of the stuff he does. Maybe half his, probably 20, 25 years younger, and he's in much better shape than I am. But there ain't no way I would do some of the stuff he's doing. I think that last Guardians of the Galaxy movie that they put out, I haven't been a huge fan of some of what the Marvel movies have been doing lately, but I thought that was a really good movie. I was a little disappointed with the Indiana Jones movie. The first 3 I thought were just some of the best movies and around. And, obviously the one that came out in 2008, a lot of people didn't like. And I thought, hey, 15 years, maybe they kind of fixed the issue, but it wasn't terrible by any means, but it was kind of a letdown.
I'm going to
And
surprise you a little bit and say that the Mission Impossible movie is probably as far as going to the theater, the only movie in movies that I've enjoyed more were Oppenheimer and Sound of Freedom. I would say Mission Impossible would put up in that third spot. I enjoyed it far more than some of the other things I've seen. And like I said, I'll go see anything. I'll go see your Haunted Mansion. I'll go see your Bogeyman. I'll go see, anything. But you got to give it to Cruise. You said he's the best action actor, of our time, really, of our generation. I mean, he puts it out at the box office, where or not it was, the Top Gun franchise or this Mission Impossible franchise. It was good to see some of like Kittredge back in this one and all. And I hated Ilsa. We lost her, but there's more to come. Obviously, this was Dead Reckoning 1. We know there's going to be Dead Reckoning Part 2. What I don't like, John, and you know this, and now it's time for the viewers to know this. I just don't like some of the unbelievable scenes, like the car chase parts and all that. Just was, and some of the stuff on the train and all. But I thought the plot was sublime as far as like that Mission Impossible goes, and I thought it's probably the best one since the first one. And I never thought I would say that, but I thought, they got away from some of the good stuff in the middle. I think this is number 7, perhaps, of them all. And I think like after the second one, we kind of got a little weird and all, but I would say that this is back to something that I can be excited about.
yeah. And I tell you, there's one other movie that I haven't really heard about, but it's playing in Newnan right now. It's called Jules with Ben Kingsley. And something about an alien that lands in someone's backyard. And just reading the reviews, they say it's supposed to be kind of a, heartwarming type movie. So, maybe a cold cynic like myself can go see that movie and get a little, heart warmed up.
When you say somebody like Ben Kingsley, I automatically think about, here's an Academy Award winner guy, played Gandhi. It seems like Gandhi won Best Picture, I believe, in 1982. That gives a movie a little bit more pull for me, a little more excitement and all. When it's something about either actors nominated for the best, or either an actor who has been in a movie that won Best Picture, or an actor who has either won or been nominated for one of the two, the acting or actress award. And I think, that gives it power right there. When you say Ben Kingsley, that's a movie that's on my radar that I definitely want to see. Anything you've been really disappointed in this summer that you had some expectations for?
Besides Indiana Jones, I'm trying to think, like, I'm kind of one of those guys. When I go and see a movie, I try not to really put a lot of expectations on anything, just because, if it's just so easy to get disappointed if you just put too much into it. I'm actually getting on my phone to kind of look through some of the movies I've seen lately.
I want you to see that last voyage of the Demeter. I know I'm saying that wrong, because it exceeded my expectations as well. But now, look, I enjoy a suspense movie. I enjoy something on the seas and all. I enjoy something with British and Australian actors. I enjoy something that's dark and rainy, and all that. And I don't mean like dark isn't the I meant like there's a lot of it. Obviously, it's a vampire movie, or Dracula movie, so you're going to have a lot of darkness. But I enjoy that kind of theme of the thing. So I do hope you'll have time to see that. It just has come out, so let's hope that's a possibility.
Yeah, and I looking back through it, I saw one. Some Wes Anderson movies I like, some I don't. But that new one he put out, Asteroid City, that was just a flaming hot pile of garbage.
But I was reading, it had some momentum when it came out, it had some, it had some stuff behind it. But I was kind of lost, and I felt like, am I missing something here? Like, when are we going to get going? When we're going to take off? And I thought, like, maybe it was about 20 minutes too long. Like people have complained about the length of Oppenheimer, but I would push back on that and say, okay, well, what would you take out? Because it seems like everything that's in Oppenheimer is relevant. I don't know if I felt the same way about Asteroid City. Is that fair assessment?
Yeah, I would say so. And, it just seemed kind of like an aimless type movie, that there was really just no point to it. And I agree with you on Oppenheimer. I really don't know what you could have taken out to have saved any bit of time because, I mean, was it a perfect movie? By no means, but I mean, just every scene and everything they did relayed back to the story and was important. So I just don't know what you could have taken out. I just think our attention spans now are just so much shorter than they used to be. If you hear anything above 2 hours, you're like, oof, this is going to be a commitment.
But almost every movie that gets considered for that best picture is over 2 hours.
Right.
You know, I remember going and seeing Babylon, and it's a fine film, and I was thinking like, okay, if they considered this for the best picture, now is this thing ever going to end? You know, that's how it felt like. You know, once again, you could chop 20, 30 minutes off of it and all. Oppenheimer, I understand why the length had to be, but that's usually just not the case with me. Also, I'd like to tell like some of these folks like putting out these movies, like if you make them a little bit shorter, you can show them maybe one more time a day and make a little extra money and have it, you know, instead of like that option, like it where it's last showings at 7:50 at night, you know, you have one at 8:30 because when I was a kid, you'd have like a 7 o'clock and a 9 o'clock you could see in the evenings and all. Well, where I live, they all got together and they said, "All right, like final showing at 7:15 of this and all." And they get out of there early. They kind of started that in the COVID time, where I guess they could clean up and all, and they just kind of continue that. But I will say that the Sound of Freedom was so well attended here, where I am and all, that it blew me away when I walked into the theater. I usually like to get there about 10 minutes before it starts. Well, I got there about 15 minutes before it starts, and I had a hard time finding a seat.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't seen that one yet, but it's on the list. You know, obviously there's a lot of controversy, you know, with that. And, you know, whenever politics get involved in anything, it can find a way to ruin anything good. So, but you know, everyone I've talked to has seen it, has said it's a good movie. So I definitely want to check it out.
I would just agree with Jim Caviezel. God's children are not for sale. You know, that's the statement that will remain with me from seeing that. And I saw The Essential Church also, and I thought that was rather interesting. That only stayed here about 3 days. There have been some fine movies, though. There have been some Christian-based movies that have been very good, and a couple still went under the radar. And Southern Gospel was one of those, and I encourage people to seek it and try to find that. That was one, and the other one came from the Left Behind series, which was, of course, a series of novels and all. The Rise of the Antichrist. Kevin Sorbo was the main person there, and I encourage people to take a look at that. The Jesus Revolution, look, that was a huge hit at the box office, but that had Lionsgate, that had a big studio, you know, behind it. Some of these other ones have very independent studios, as the Left Behind certainly was that case in the Southern Gospel movie. So I would encourage people to just go to the movies. Let's enjoy them while we can, because of the strike that's going on and all. It's probably going to push back some production of some things as well as television shows, and that in itself, John, is kind of frustrating.
Oh yeah, no, it's I guess the one good thing is I'm so far behind on some things I've been wanting to watch. I'll have some time to catch up on, but you know, I get it too. Like on the writer side, I can't remember exactly who shared it, but someone shared their revenue split from all this streaming stuff, and one of the real popular shows, and they got like a 5 cent check. I was like, yeah, I'd probably go on strike too if I'm getting paid 5 cents for the hard work. And yeah, I actually went to a comedy show a few months back, and I guess to kind of prove the point, what they did is they did all their jokes from Chat GPT.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of the most uncomfortable things I've ever had to sit through. So, yeah, I mean, I know AI people like love it and it can do some amazing things, but you can't take away the human element of someone actually writing something down, putting their thoughts, feelings, and experiences in it, and you know, relaying that back to the screen, or you know, to a copy stage or wherever they do.
No, I agree with you there. And something I want to salute you on is you go out and you support the arts. You go to stand up comedy stuff and support them. You go to the movie theater, you go to plays and all. I mean, I think that like speaks volumes of you. And what's the best stand up comic you've seen recently? We can give him or her a plug and maybe get some people out there to see them.
I will tell you, Man, I've gotten to see a lot of good ones. My favorite right now is a guy named Nate Bargatze. I'm going to see him in December. He's a good one. And there's excuse me, there's a company called One Up Comedy, and I've gotten to become friends with the owner, and his name is Joe Pettis. And the stuff he's doing for stand up comedy around the state, he's bringing in like bigger names and trying to just really get a bigger scene of stand up happening in Atlanta. He's doing a great job, and really good guy. And
He's trying to give them exposure, is what it sounds like.
exposure, like that's the biggest thing. Like he'll bring in kind of those comics that, like one guy he brought in named Brian Bates, who is almost at that level, but not quite, like a Netflix by himself guy. But then he has all these local Atlanta comics open for him. So just getting them that exposure to people. And it's been a lot of fun getting to do that. And, arts wise, one thing I tell people to do, our local schools, whether it be our Echo Stage program at East Coweta, our Northgate's theater director just moved to Newnan. Get out there and support those kids. They work hard. Those theater directors, they work really hard as well, and they do a great job. I mean, I am no Shakespeare guy by any mean, and I went and saw their play this summer, and I was completely lost. But just the production that they put into it and the way those kids performed it, they were excellent.
Some great bands in your area also, and that area is, of course, in Coweta County to go see. I still hit up my wife of 20 years when I see her, and I haven't seen her in a day or two, or I'll say, forswear foresight, for I never saw true beauty until this night. So, you shake, it's hard to beat. Well, that's Romeo and Juliet. It's hard to beat Romeo and Juliet. I told you we'd also talk a great deal of sports. Let's transition into the sports world. First on baseball, around my place, it's depressing these days. If you're new to Talking with Tony, this is season 14, but there's always a mention of the New York Yankees when there's baseball season, because I watch the Yankees every single day. And as we film this today, the Yankees are on the outside looking in. They can't even get in the wild card right now, and there's a couple of teams ahead of them for that final wild card. So I'm depressed. You're a fan of the Atlanta Braves, and that Braves offense just looks phenomenal. And I think the pitching has been better than anyone expected, especially when you consider the injuries that staff has had.
Oh yeah, I'm sure yesterday's game really upset you with the way they just throttled the Mets. 21 on them and then putting 6 on them in a few hours later. But I don't follow the Braves as much as I probably should. I'm a fan, and I like catching up on it. I do a lot more reading about them just with some of the other stuff I've got going on. But
I think you tune in the postseason, right?
Yeah.
Those games are a little more important to you when it hits the postseason.
Right. But just seeing, like yesterday, I actually got to kind of sit down for a little bit because I was waiting around for a concert to start, and just watching what they did to the Mets. And like, Ozzy Albies, putting up 27 homers so far. And, they just crush the ball when they're up at the plate. And, it's funny, Matt Olson, who played at Parkview, he's the same age as my buddy, Coach Ridgway at East Coweta, and they played summer ball against each other. And I was like, so, Tyler, what was it like playing against Matt Olson? He goes, it was like watching a high schooler play with a little league team. He was just a monster.
And he's got a great glove over there at first. People were upset about the Freddie Freeman getting away to the Dodgers. And I was trying to tell people, look, you've gotten a steal from Oakland. Sean Murphy is sensational, but just thinking about Matt Olson, that was all part of. They got rid of Matt Chapman, they got rid of Chris Bassett. Oakland unloaded all these great players, but Matt Olson is a local guy, hits with power from the left side with an unbelievable glove. He's younger than Freddie Freeman, and you know what? He leads the majors right now in home runs. He's hit over 40, one more than Ohtani has hit. I think it's 42 and 41 as we speak, and of course that's fluid. But Matt Olson is going to work out just fine for Atlanta.
Oh, yeah. And the thing is, I'll be a Freddie fan. He won a title before getting out of here, and he did a lot of good things. But the thing I've noticed about baseball, it's almost kind of like fighters. When those guys start their decline, it goes like that. Albert Pujols being a prime example. You know, when he left the Cardinals for the Angels, he was never the same type of player. So, yeah, I don't blame the Braves organization at all for, taking a chance on a younger guy. And I always mess up his name, so I just call him Alex A. But, just the moves he makes, he looks like a genius right now. I mean, locking up Albies and Acuna for so long. And I know
Austin Riley, same thing, locking up these guys. And when they bring up young guys like Michael Harris, or just whoever it might be that contribute quickly, the Yankees bring up people, and we see some good things out of Volpe, Cabrera, Peraza, but we don't see the kind of impact that the Orioles and the Diamondbacks guys and the Braves guys have been able to do. And that makes a difference. You can't have six guys in your lineup hitting 220 or less. And that's something the Yankees have. Like, most of the season have had this struggle offensively. I usually hope for a rematch of the 96 and 99 World Series, which was the Braves and the Yankees. I find myself right now being more realistic. I want a National League Championship Series again of the Braves and the Dodgers. I want the Braves to face Freddie Freeman and Jason Hayward. Those were two guys that, came up with Atlanta, and everyone had pinned such big hopes on, and both delivered for Atlanta. And let's be honest, especially Freddie Freeman. It would be so, and we've used this word interesting tonight a couple of times. It would be, though, to see the Dodgers and the Braves again, but this time LA have Freeman and Hayward. That would be some fun baseball to watch come October.
Oh, yeah. And then, it could give me some, room to talk trash to our mutual friend Hap Hines, or, him to just rub it in my face if it goes their way. So, yeah, that would be fun to see for sure.
We got about 5 minutes left. I'd be remiss if we didn't discuss college football. Now, if you've enjoyed John's visit tonight, you'll see him again on Talking with Tony. This is not going to be his only appearance. We know that we'll have John back in a few weeks. He is on frequently. But John, your team, the Georgia Bulldogs, are ranked number one again. They're the betting favorite out in Las Vegas, and Alabama is right there with them. Michigan is right there with them. Ohio State in most polls is coming in about 4. USC has got some momentum behind them. Florida State and Clemson are there from the ACC. But Georgia is that team to beat, and they're also the defending champions. They should be that team to beat. I like the Buckeyes wide receiver core like you can't imagine, and the running back. I don't know about the development of the quarterback. We haven't named a starting quarterback yet. You don't know if it's Kyle McCord or Devin Brown or maybe someone else. And then there's the offensive line that's the real spot. Luke Walper going pro really was a surprise for Ohio State at center position. So they lost. You can argue they lost 4 of their 5 starters for offensive line that are going to have to be. And that game is won on that line of scrimmage and stuff. And that may give Michigan the edge, as hard as that is to say. Michigan the edge in the Big Ten. Michigan has beat Ohio State the last 2 years. I think Michigan is really, really good, and I think they have more balance offensively and defensively. But I can see it this year with the last year of the playoff, John, being the 4 teams, 2 from the SEC, and potentially Ohio State and Michigan out of the Big Ten that looks more like the Big 30 right now.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the traditional Big Ten rivalry of Ohio State and USC that we'll see in a few years. But, yeah, I mean, what happens with UGA is whether it's Carson Beck or Brock Vandegrift, those are the 2 guys who are in the running to replace Stetson. Can they come in and just play, manage, and do what they do? And then, I feel like Mike Bobo is coming in kind of with the chip on his shoulder, how things just didn't work out at Auburn while he was there. And, one thing, when he was at UGA, he did well, wasn't very liked at times because he would make some bad choices like all OCs do. But, can he come in and kind of maintain what Todd Monken has done the past few seasons? The defense, I feel like they could have just another impactful season, because one thing Kirby Smart does is he knows how to recruit and develop defensive players. And I mean, the biggest struggles I see with UGA is reading up on this offseason is, can they just keep that running back room healthy? Because it's like every time you open up whatever website, somebody's hurt, somebody's, day to day or whatever. But I tell you one thing I am going to enjoy is Brock Bowers, because this is more than likely the last season he's going to be wearing a UGA uniform. And I mean, just like Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best wide receiver in all of college football, Brock Bowers is the best tight end. And the thing I like hearing and reading about the guy is that not only is he just a great football player, he's also just a great kid in general. If we have time, I'll tell this story real fast. I still have a friend that lives up in Athens, and his son was outside just playing in the yard. They were playing a game of catch, and he was wearing his Brock Bowers jersey. And it just so happens he lives in the same neighborhood as Brock Vandegrift, who's from Athens. And Vandegrift and Bowers, who are close, were riding by. They stopped their truck. Bowers gets out, goes, like shakes the kid's hand, introduces himself, and signs his jersey and just says, "Hey, thanks for being a fan," gets in and leaves. And it's just, where do you hear about that type of stuff with, the one of, if not the premier players in college football right now?
He didn't have to give back, and he took that moment to give back. And everything that I know also from his Prince Avenue Christian school days, Brock Vandegraff is a heck of a guy too, a really good person as well. And I know that Carson Beck has paid his dues, and it's probably his time. But I think that the future right there is with Brock Vandegraff. I don't know if he gets the reins this season, but it will happen. And for him, and he deserves it, because he, and give Gunnar Stockton a little bit of kudos. Also, they've stayed. They could have easily left and gone somewhere else because they have that ability, to do that. So we saw Quinn Ewers when he didn't get the job at Ohio State. He bolted out of town and went home to Texas. So I really respect that. Thank you so much for sharing that story, because it's we don't hear enough uplifting things. We don't hear enough uplifting things out there in the world, period, John. People like to tear each other down instead of lift people up. That kid will never forget that. Okay, that was a class thing done by two class guys, and we wouldn't know that without you sharing that. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, no, thank you for just giving me that opportunity to do it. I wish nothing but the best for that kid, no matter what happens with him.
We're about to wrap it up. Got a couple of minutes left. I know that this is unfair because toe hasn't met leather, as Al, the great Georgia Tech play-by-play man, used to say, Al C. But it may be a little unfair. But if I had to ask you right now, are you feeling that three-peat or not? If I had to ask you right now, and that's a little unfair. But you said it, like Kirby is able to bring these defensive guys around. You're going to lose seniors, and you're going to lose some juniors to the draft. But you don't anticipate losing somebody like a Bear Alexander who had such great. But with UGA, it doesn't matter, because we'll just put another 5-star in there. Is what it seems like. It seems like they do. So, and playing in the East, I still contend, helps. And then you're in your own backyard in Atlanta playing in that SEC championship game, and then you're in the Final Four, so to speak. So I think they're in a great position.
Yeah, I won't predict it just so I don't have egg on my face, but they got just as good of a chance as anybody else. And, it would be awesome just, to have gone that long without winning one and then to win 3 in a row. I mean, now you're talking about Kirby being spoken in the same breath as, some of the greats like Saban or possibly Bear and all those guys as well. So it's going to be an exciting season. I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen.
The SEC West is stacked. Watch out for LSU. I've got this feeling LSU might be playing in that SEC championship game. That would make our mutual friend Randy Robbins very happy.
Oh yeah, I mean, just I'd have to be careful though, because I put it in his face a little bit. What happened in that SEC title game. So, hopefully I don't have to eat any crow this year, because Randy's very good at talking trash as well.
Well, sometimes living life living life great is the best form of revenge instead of your team. So maybe Randy would just live life well. John, I really appreciate you taking time and appearing here on season 14 of Talking with Tony with me.
Man, I appreciate it. And hopefully I set the standard for the other guests this season, or hopefully I didn't set the bar so low they've got an easy bar to cross over when they show up.
It's the former and not the latter. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in to Talking with Tony. This meant a lot for us to make the transition over to YouTube. We hope you've enjoyed our program. It's the 14th season of Talking with Tony, our 14th year. For John Perkerson and Jake Barton, I'm Tony. We'll see you next time right here on Talking with Tony.